Hey everybody, welcome back. Today I am going to continue to talk about the lessons that I've been learning from this book right here. It's called Whoever Tells the Best Story Wins. And so if you are trying to learn how to improve your influence with others, whether that be in business, through marketing and sales, or personally, this book is full of great tips, examples, exercises, and theories behind how you can use stories to improve your influence and win the game, like the title implies. And so if you missed my video last week where I talked about the first half of this book and the lessons that I learned about why storytelling is important and how you can start to begin practicing, go check it out. The link's going to be in the description. And if you want to continue in this episode, we are going to be talking about perfecting the craft of storytelling according to the suggestions that the author of this book offers. There are four main suggestions that I'm going to focus on right now. So the first one is sensory details lead to experiences. Or in other words, providing sensory details in your stories will help the listeners, experience the story in a very real and tangible way. What's important about this, when you're trying to come up with stories and trying to find good ones to tell your target audiences, it's important to do what the author calls full body research. And so what that means is taking a step back away from all of the objective thinking and the objective data collection and going into the qualitative, subjective world of your audience. He gives the example of a company sending employees out to pretend to actually be customers at various banks, open up accounts, and literally experience it for themselves. And having this full body experience and this full body research led to the discovery of very meaningful stories that they were able to use and share in ways that really helped the organization grow and exert, positive influence. And the important thing to remember here is that while objective data collection and analyses can be valuable, like I mentioned in the last video, it's honestly the subjective behaviors and the subjective feelings that we experience as people that really drive behavior. And that's why it's so important to harness those as we're trying to tell, our visceral and tangible stories to others. The second principle when it comes to perfecting the craft of storytelling is learn how to be brief and harness the power of brevity. There's a very famous quote that she shares from some old letters going back and forth in history where someone says, "If I had had more time to prepare or to write this letter, it would have been shorter." And the principle there is that brevity takes time, ironically, to prepare in advance. And it takes quality preparation and sincere thought to be able to craft a very brief message that is powerful. So if you're trying to increase your influence, figure out what you need to say, identify the meaning you need to communicate, say it, and then shut up. Let people experience the meaning for themselves and work out the solutions for themselves. All you need to do is provide a brief guidance and meaningful story. Now, the third thing I want to touch on that the author recommends when it comes to perfecting the craft of storytelling is called points of view. We need to master the idea of looking at stories from different points of view. The great example that the author gives in this book is that of the story of the Wizard of Oz. She tells the story of somebody who decided, I wonder what this story would be like from a different point of view, specifically from the point of view of the Wicked Witch of the West. Now, after this person entertained that point of view for long enough, he saw the story in an entirely different way, wrote it down with his own twists and flares, and, the famous Broadway musical Wicked came out of it. And so you never know what can come out of entertaining your stories from a different point of view. And the exercise that the author offers is take one of your stories that you're planning to tell and try to imagine it from the point of view of someone who loses. So if you're going to be the winner of this story, who lost? If there's not a loser, try to find the perspective of somebody who's not the hero, right? If your company is providing the solution to some hard problem in the market, how does somebody who's unaffiliated really see that story? How do the companies you're competing against see that story? And if you can learn how to entertain it from different points of view, one of two things will happen. One, your story will actually become stronger and it will have more influence. Or two, you're going to discover that the story was actually only meaningful to yourself, and that those listening to it, or those with different points of view, aren't going to relate and aren't going to take action. Now, the fourth thing that comes to mastering the craft of storytelling is listening. Now, obviously, we are trying to steer clear of the concept of simply hearing the other person's side. Listening is deeper than that, and it needs to be more effective than just hearing if you are to harness its powers to become an effective storyteller. I loved the description that the author provides. They said, listening is fully experiencing another's point of view without judgment. It's more than just hearing. In order to really practice listening, you have to practice letting down all of your barriers and experiencing the other person's point of view as if you were them. You have to withhold your judgment and surrender. Now, when it comes to actually making a decision, surrender often seems like the wrong choice. And I'm not saying you, in the end, actually should surrender. But that's the feeling that it feels like when you take a step back and actually listen to the other points of view. Because after you fully experience those, you will have gained increased knowledge that will then allow you to re-articulate your perspective in such a way that you truly can influence them. And you can win. Storytelling isn't always about surrendering, right? It's about trying to win the game, get the customer, solve the problem, whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. As a recap, those are the 4 tips when it comes to mastering the craft of storytelling that I was able to learn from reading this book, Whoever Tells the Best Story Wins. Now, obviously, I have not been able to describe everything in this book in detail. So if you want to pick up your own copy of this book and learn the things that I wasn't able to go over, there's a link in the description for you to pick it up. I recommend it. It's a great read. And for those of you watching, go ahead. You guys comment what you learned down below. And feel free to leave me suggestions on what you think I should read next and talk about next. Thanks so much for sticking around. And if you come back next week, I'll have a new video for you. All right.